So, a patient calls your clinic, calls your office. What do you say when somebody asks, how much does it cost to work together? Do you freeze up? Do you ramble on and on? Do you awkwardly apologize for the price? You're not alone. If any of those sound like you, I promise you're not alone. That's exactly how I felt like the first probably good 6 months that I was in practice for myself. I was just flailing when it came to having these conversations. In this video, I want to walk you through some really simple frameworks to show you exactly how to talk about your rates with confidence, clarity, and hopefully as little cringe as possible. We are going to talk about how to structure an initial consultation conversation, talk about a few ways to handle possible objections or hesitations that might come up, and how to talk about pricing, what to actually say when someone asks, and how to respond if they say that's too expensive. So if you're new here, hello, my name is Morgan, and I am a physical therapist and a business coach for physical therapists and other healthcare providers. We have developed this amazing program called DPT to CEO that is now a 7-month coaching program to help you get your own solo cash-based practice up off the ground, get it running, and grow it so that you are able to work for yourself full-time, leave the clinic grind behind, and just enjoy being a clinician again while still feeling like you have time, financial, and clinical freedom. So if you are in a place where you are just getting started, or even if you've been, hacking away at things for the past year or so, and your practice is just not really growing the way that you want it to, and you don't really know what to do next, we would love to talk to you. Feel free to schedule a free practice consultation with myself or one of my other coaches at the link in the description down below. Just like a 15-20 minute conversation. We'll chit chat, get to know each other, and point you in the right direction, whether it's working with us or not. But glad you're here. Let's talk more about sales and pricing. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about now, since I have really studied it and put in a lot of reps. When it comes down to it, sales and talking about pricing, it's all a conversation. It is a consultation. It is you screening. It's really not a pitch. A pitch doesn't really happen until you are sure that the person in front of you is somebody that you can confidently help and you have a plan for. Otherwise, the pitch doesn't even happen. And if you book a call with us, you will experience the way that we teach sales and teach how to have a consultative selling skill. So let's talk about this. If this is totally new for you, typically the way that things go, or at least the way that I've done things in my practice, is say I have an inquiry from somebody at the gym, or sometimes different gym members, community members will email me or Instagram message me and ask about setting up an appointment for physical therapy. So before I say yes, there are a few different things that I like to ask to make sure that I am the right person to help them. Because again, we're not trying to sell stuff just to sell stuff. If we're not the right people to help and we don't have the right offer, we should point people in the right direction. That's where a lot of the integrity with sales comes from. That's the way that we do it. That's the way that's always felt most comfortable to me, rather than trying to push things that, are just not the right fit. So in these conversations, we will have some kind of consultation, whether it is direct messaging back and forth or actually setting up a time for a phone call or a video call or a quick conversation to ask these questions. And in this conversation, it's not your job to convince anybody to work with you. It's really not. That has always felt really weird and strange to me. It is your job to nurture relationships and offer value and have honest and open conversations with people, but it's never your job to try to convince somebody to stick around. It's your job to gather information, understand the client, and offer the right next step, whether that's with you or not. So this initial conversation is going to happen, and then at the end of this initial conversation, if it feels like the right fit and you can help them, the next step that we typically do is to schedule an initial evaluation appointment. And this appointment is paid, and it's where, of course, you would do your clinical evaluation, and as long as, again, things are adding up and you feel like you can help this person, this is also where you would make the pitch, quote unquote. But really, it's just like the plan section of any clinical evaluation or clinical session, where based on the subjective, objective, and your assessment, you develop a plan for the person in front of you and you share the plan with them. And you get their agreement, you get their buy-in with that. So that's what the pitch is going to look like. So the sales process is, right, some kind of consultation conversation. And if the person is a good fit for how you work with people, you offer them an evaluation. And based on things in the evaluation, that is when you can, quote unquote, pitch the person in front of you a plan of care and a plan to work together. So it's very segmented, and I always like to remember that, because I know at the beginning it's really easy to get like anxious and overwhelmed about like, this is the first time I'm ever meeting this person in this consultation call. It's the first time I've ever talked to them, right? Oh my God, like I have to try to like convince them to buy like $2,500 worth of services from me right now, but that's just not true. It's one domino at a time. Doing the consultation, if they're a good fit for the way that you work with people, great. We're going to sell them on coming in for an evaluation. That's it. And if during that initial consultation, they ask like, how much is it going to cost to work together? Usually what I say is, on it, like, that's a great question. We start with the eval, it's X dollars. And at the end of the evaluation, we'll come up with a plan that will fit you and what you're looking for. And so it does range quite a bit, but I'm always willing to work with people to figure out a plan, as long as it feels like the right fit to work together, to figure out a plan that fits both your schedule and your budget. Does that sound okay? Usually that kind of answer is good enough, because we're really only taking it to the second step. We're not asking to get married immediately, like just going to the second date. Like that's it. And so we don't really need to worry about anything much past that just yet. And so if we go to talk about like what do you ask in this initial consultation? So say somebody comes up to me at the gym and they are like, I heard you're a PT, Morgan. I have this shoulder thing going on. Do you think you can help me with it? I might say something along the lines of, oh, like I'm sorry to hear that your shoulder is bothering you. Totally happy to talk about it. If it's cool with you, I have a few minutes right now. I'll just ask you like a few questions and get some information and figure out, if I'm the right person to help you. Does that sound okay? They'll say yes, because why wouldn't they say yes? And that's like a good little tidbit to keep in mind when it comes to talking to people, is asking for permission is really helpful to continue to engage the other person and make sure that you guys are on the same page. And so they'll say yes, and then we have this 4-part screening process. So get your memorizing helmet on, because it's really helpful to have these 4 questions memorized, so that at like any given time, if somebody approaches you, you have the tools to ask the questions that you need in order to figure out if the person is a good fit to work with you. So this person just came up and said, I have this shoulder thing. And the first question in the screening process is to ask, do they have a problem that you can help with? Yes, I happen to be great at helping people with shoulder things. So yes, check. Okay, we're in the clear. And then I'll probably ask them, like, what happened to your shoulder? How long has it been going on? A little bit more like clinical questions. And then ask a little bit about what are their goals. So that's question number 2 of the screening process. So I understand, you want help with your shoulder right now. What kind of movements is it preventing you from doing? Like, what kind of things do you want to get back to doing? Get a better idea of what their goals are, because that will be important down the road as you continue to sell them at every step of the process. You always want to remember that whatever you're talking about, it needs to be framed in a way where it is about them. It is always about the client, almost never about you. Because if you can frame the way that you work with people as the right fit for them, because it's going to help them get back to the things that are important to them, you're going to make all of the sales. It's almost never really about you, your credentials, how long you've been in practice. I think I've been asked that maybe twice in 7 years. So like that really almost never comes up. I don't even know if I've ever been asked about my credentials, to be honest. But anyways, so question 1, do they have a problem you can help with? Yes. What are their goals? Get some information on what they're looking to do as a result of working with you. Question number 3, are they looking for help? So at this point, if they approached you, probably, like they are reaching out and asking for help. But occasionally somebody might just be telling you that they have a shoulder problem, and it might not be clear whether they want help. This has happened to me a few times, where I might just ask a gym member like, hey, like, how's it going, did you do the workout today, blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, like, I've had this shoulder thing going on for a while, don't really know what to do about it, but they don't really ask me for help. So sometimes I'll put it out there a little bit and say like, hey, well, I don't know if you know, but I work with athletes here all the time with very like similar shoulder things. And if you'd like, we could always set up a time to talk a little bit more about it and see if I could help you out. Would that be okay? You could always pitch it out there too. But you need to be clear that they are looking for help. They want help. They want assistance, because not everybody does. And if they don't want help, you are going to have a hell of a time trying to convince somebody to work with you. So that's question 3. And then question 4 is, do they want to take action on it now? So sometimes, and this is probably a topic for another day, but occasionally you might field questions around like, it's been bothering me for 6 to 8 weeks or so. I've done some stuff to try to help, but I just found these other things that I'm going to try. So maybe I should see if I can do things on my own and see if that helps for a little while. And you have a couple of different ways of handling that. I would say, like, if it like clinically to you seems like them continuing to do stretches and lacrosse ball and foam rolling and exercises once a week is like not really going to help them, I know I feel like a clinical obligation to say like, hey, totally appreciate the fact that like you want to take initiative on making this feel better. I know you have really important goals that you want to be working on, and so I can understand that this is really important to you to change, to improve as soon as possible. Based on what you've told me, it doesn't really sound like doing more of the same thing is really going to help you out, just because you said you lacrosse balled your shoulder a bunch and it made it worse, and you want to just get into foam rolling it. It doesn't really sound like that's going to be the thing that is really going to make a difference based on what I know clinically and everything. And so my suggestion for you would be, why don't we just let's set up one appointment. Let's do like our first initial appointment, because I will be able to do a better job evaluating what's truly going on and give you a better sense of what kind of a plan is going to help you moving forward. So whether we end up working together or we just do this one session, why don't we just start there and we could see what things look like and always talk, towards the end of that session and see what we want to do moving forward. How does that sound? Because I want to help you get out of pain as soon as possible too. So you could always pitch it a little bit more like that. But yeah, I would say like those are the 4 screening questions that I think are most important. Do they have a problem you can help with? What are their goals? Like, what are they looking to do? Do they want help? And do they want help now? Like, do they want to take action on it now? If you make that kind of an offer where, why don't we just do the first appointment and, get you going, and we'll come up with a plan together and figure out what that looks like. And they're still kind of like on the fence, you could always ask more questions. So I think like that's one big takeaway that I would love for you to take from this video, from this podcast episode, is that just because somebody presents a hesitation or an objection to moving forward, it doesn't mean the conversation is over. If you and the other person are open to it, you can continue the discussion. You can ask more questions to get more information, to just see how are you going to be able to help this person the best. So keep that in mind. All right, talking about pricing. So we don't always want to save pricing for the end. We also just don't want to lead with it either. Like, if the first thing that somebody asks you is how much do you charge, you need to redirect the conversation and gather some more information. So somebody comes up to me at the gym and says, oh, I heard you're a PT. What do you charge? I'm not just going to answer that question right away. I'm going to say like, oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, I do work here. I work with a lot of the athletes here. Out of curiosity, like, are you dealing with some pain or like an injury right now? Or, do you have something going on that you want help with? gather more information and go through the consultation conversation that we just talked about. Once you understand what you're dealing with, that's when we can introduce the evaluation first. And we already kind of touched on that a little bit, but typically once I go through the screening questions and I'm like, yes, 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 I think this person would be a good fit for the way that I work with people, I will tell them that and say like, okay, cool. Based on what we talked about today, I think you would be a great fit for the way that I work with people. I understand that it's important to you to rehab your shoulder to get back to mountain climbing as soon as you can because like you have a competition coming up, something like that. So like see how I linked it, like their problem to their goal to like the ultimate goal. That's important to talk through. So from here, from this conversation, our next step would be to set up an initial evaluation. This appointment is usually roughly about like 50 to 60 minutes and it includes a full assessment of everything. We'll talk through everything that's going on with your body and we'll also help you figure out a plan to move forward. The first initial session is $200. And then at the end of the eval, we'll go over the plan and discuss different options for a plan based on what you need. Kind of like a sandwich here. I always kind of like cruise by the price. Just like drop it in there like it's not a big deal because it's not. It's not the main focus of what we are doing here. Your care and your plan and the way that you help people, that is the main focus, plus the actual person in front of you. The pricing is not the main focus. So we'll say that the first step is the eval. It's $200. And at the end of the eval, we'll come up with a plan and figure out what we're going to do next. And then from there, you can just roll right into scheduling. If the person seems like agreeable to it, just say like, okay, cool. I have a 3:00 tomorrow or 6:00 on Monday. Which one works better for you? Just roll right into it. Occasionally, I'll stop after introducing the evaluation piece and say, like, does that sound okay to you? But depending on how the conversation had gone already, I might just get right into scheduling. And then from here, I want to talk a little bit about one of, I would say, like the most common hesitations when it comes to cash-based practice and like offering cash-based healthcare services. I talked about mainly in this video the consultation conversation prior to the initial evaluation, but if you're interested, we could always do another video on the actual evaluation itself and the conversation in there. I just feel like it's going to be a little bit longer video, so I don't want to go too in depth on that, but during the evaluation, right, this is where the majority of it is going to be pre-framing the conversation and telling the person what's going to happen during the eval, doing the actual clinical evaluation. And then at the end is when you pitch your plan first. So that would be, I think, the thing that I would say to focus on and take away like from this video today is at the end of your evaluation, you're going to pitch your plan before you mention any numbers at all. So at the end of the eval, based on your subjective, objective assessment, clinical judgment, you can say like, okay, cool. Based on what we talked about today, I think the best way to move forward is going to be to continue to work together. I actually worked with somebody just like you a couple months ago. So that's like a little thing that you can throw into the conversation. I actually worked with somebody just like you a couple of months ago dealing with the same issues. And since we started working together, we followed this plan where we met every other week for about 8 weeks. Now they're back to doing X, Y, and Z. And so I feel very confident in saying like, I think a very similar plan for you would work really well. So here's what we're going to do together. So after today, we're going to schedule our first appointment for next week. Then we're going to meet every other week for 4 sessions. And during that time, we're going to do A, B, and C. My goal is for us to see progress in X, Y, and Z. And from there, after those initial 4 sessions, we'll reevaluate, figure out where we're at, and we'll continue to make progress from there. So it's kind of hard for me to like make up the dialogue on the spot without an actual patient case, but there's no numbers in there, right? Besides the number of appointments, there's no like pricing. And it's important to like lay out the plan for the patient in front of you, letting them know that you've done this before, treated this situation, you feel confident being able to treat it again, and this is going to be the plan that's going to help them make progress towards their goals. Then you're going to get their buy-in, their permission and say like, does that sound like a good plan to you? And they'll say, yes, great. Then you can talk about pricing. And you'll say, okay, cool. So the investment for this plan is X dollars. We can either take that in full today, or split it up into two payments. If you want, you can do that. Or you can just say, like the investment is $1,000 and we can go ahead and take payment today, get you squared away, get going, and get scheduled for next week. Just like very much staying in charge of the conversation and leading the way. And like I said, we can always do another video to get into more details on like how to really like structure the evaluation conversation, but just leave me a comment down below if that's something that you want to see. So what happens if you make the offer, it's $1,000 to work together, and they say that's too expensive? So a good first question to kind of like give everybody time to think, I think, is to say like, hey, I totally understand. It's always a good idea to agree with objections, kind of like diffuse the situation. Hey, totally understand. I know it's an investment. It's, not the cheapest option out there. However, money aside, does this plan sound like it is the right fit to help you? They'll say yes. And then you'll say, okay, cool. Like what about the plan really stands out to you? Like, what do you think will be the most helpful? Get some more information and they'll tell you. And then you'll say, okay, cool. Well, let me ask you this, like if we could figure out a way to come up with a payment plan or something that would make things like more digestible for you and make the investment a little bit easier, is that something that you'd be open to talking about? They'll say yes. And so that's when now you have the opportunity to create a payment plan that's going to work best for them. Because you can always make it easier for somebody to pay you. It doesn't have to be like a hard stop initially. And if they say like, back when you say like money aside, does this feel like a good fit for what you're looking for? If they say no, that's a totally different conversation, right? And like you can talk a little bit more about why it doesn't really feel like the right fit. So, final thoughts here. Confidence converts. And I know at the beginning it is hard to build up that confidence, but the confidence is going to come from the repetitions. You're going to be nervous at the beginning. You're going to mess up. It's not going to be very good. But the more reps that you put in, you're going to get better. You're going to become okay at this. Then you're going to be good, and then you're going to be great. And the more reps you put in, the more people that you work with, the more stories that you can draw on, to share with your potential clients and also to help build up your own clinical confidence working on your own. But if you stay stuck, you stay worried about it, and we don't put in any reps, you're not going to gain the confidence that you need in order to make these sales. But confidence converts. And my hope is like through the examples that I gave today, you can see that like the tone and the energy and the body language is really important as well. I have gotten feedback from people where whenever I've sold things to people that it's very disarming, it's genuine, it's chill. And that's been the approach that works really well for me because it really does just feel like having a conversation with a friend. There's no pressure. It's just, is this person the right fit for the next step? And if not, that's okay. Like you really working on your own and having your own practice, you have the privilege to work with people who are the best fit for you. You don't have to work with everybody. And I think that's awesome. So if you are calm, clear, and direct, clients are going to mirror that and they're also going to trust you. And trust is huge in sales. Don't feel the need to oversell, to over explain, to defend your pricing. Just say it like it is. Just say, this is the plan. This is what I'm thinking. This is the price, or the investment. What do you think? And then you can have a discussion. It can be helpful to practice your language ahead of time so that it doesn't come out as being apologetic. So practice with a bunch of people in safe spaces. Practice talking about making sales and how much it costs to work with you. And remember, like the person in front of you is looking for a solution. And it's up to you to guide them through a conversation to figure out if you are the right fit as the solution. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, and that's okay. It's all part of the process. You're not going to bat 1,000% on this. Statistically, not going to happen. And so sometimes even that makes me feel better because if this isn't the right opportunity, I know another one is like right around the corner. So I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below what your biggest takeaway was. And if you want to hear more content on sales stuff, please let us know. If you're in a place where you feel like this is the key component that has been missing from my practice, like I've been getting calls from different patients and I cannot convert them. We would love to help you out. We'd love to talk to you. We spend a good chunk of our program talking about sales and how to feel like confident and streamlined and simple so that you can get out there and grow your practice. We'd love to help you out. So feel free to book a free practice consultation with our team. We will point you in the right direction, whether it's with us or not. You can find the link down below. So with that, thank you for watching out this video, and I'll see you on the next one.